Welcome to The Real News. I'm Jessel Noor. Nurses around the world, including in the United States, are protesting the dire shortage of personal protective equipment, like N95 masks, gloves, medical gowns, and more, in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. New York, the current epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic, says they could run out of supplies in just days, risking further escalating the crisis. Nurses protesting outside of the Montefiore Medical Center on April 2nd said they feared for their lives.
People are very frightened for their lives. They are afraid they're going to poison their families. But the most important thing is that this is a pandemic, and we know we have a responsibility, a moral, an ethical, and a clinical responsibility to save lives. And if we get sick, we can't do it. If we don't have the staff, we need so much more nurses, and we can't get them because they're afraid to come. We know that if we make them safe, they'll come and we'll have the help that we need. If I have to take care of 4 patients who are critically ill and all I can do is take care of 1, how do I choose? How do I choose among the 4 whose life I'm going to save? It's an impossible situation, and it's causing people so much emotional and physical trauma.
Nurses with National Nurses United, the largest nurses union in the country, took part in actions at 15 hospitals on April 2nd and 3rd to demand their employers provide adequate personal protective gear. Medical professionals have been warning of this impending crisis for weeks and demanded Trump force industry to produce the needed equipment through the Defense Production Act. And it appears he will finally act. But has this come too late? Now joining us to discuss this just before she joins a protest is Maria Luvio, a registered nurse, a member of the California Nurses Association, and a National Nurses United nurse representative at the University of California, Irvine. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Jessel. We appreciate your time.
So we know that you are about to go and take part in an action outside of your hospital. Talk about the conditions there and what your demands are right now.
Sure. Currently, the conditions at our hospital is, nurses, all the frontliners are facing a situation where we are not allowed to wear our N95 respirators. Respirators are actually under lock and key. In some cases, security needs to be called up to release the PPEs, our personal protective equipment. In other cases, a respirator needs to be signed out, but we do not have easy access to N95 respirators, nor do we have easy access as well to just surgical masks. We're not allowed to wear masks of any kind unless certain criteria are met throughout the hospital. So our action today is to bring awareness to our need for protection, because if nurses are not protected, our patients aren't protected, the community is not protected. So, it affects everyone. We're really here to fight for the safety of everyone.
And so this N95 mask, I know it's been the subject of a lot of discussion, but explain exactly why these are so important, because we know they are in short supply. But just start off by talking about why they're so critical in fighting COVID-19.
The importance of the N95 respirator is because it provides a higher protection for the healthcare providers. We are looking at a current situation where truly the CDC doesn't really have the answers to COVID-19. This is still something new. Studies are still being conducted on the transmission of the virus, really what the virus does, whether it lingers on surfaces, whether it stays in the air. So we're calling for the maximum protection, because especially during this time, we feel that in an emergent condition like this during a pandemic, that it's time to be proactive, not reactive. And it just seems that in our hospital, as well as throughout the UC, and actually throughout all the hospitals in the nation, hospitals are, including ours, just more reactive with their policies. And being reactive really is not protecting nurses, not protecting patients, not protecting the community at all.
And what exactly has been the response been from the hospital? I've talked to some doctors and some other medical professionals at UC and in their region, and from my understanding, they're sending out new directives constantly. So there's maybe a lack of communication, but also constantly changing information, which adds to the confusion. Can you comment on that?
certainly that is part of the problem. Is the policies that are in place do seem to change with a certain amount of frequency. They also seem to conflict and contradict themselves. But these policies that we're focusing on are primarily the policies for our PPEs, our personal protective equipment, in particular the N95 respirators, and also what are called the powered air purifying respirators. Short name is PEPPERS. So we are really calling for the the supplies to be available to us. What's happening at this particular time is once a nurse is finally issued an N95 respirator, that N95 respirator needs to be used continuously and as we go from patient to patient. It needs to we need to use it until that respirator is compromised, either soiled, wet, loss of integrity, but it needs to be reused frequently. And that is really outside of the regulations that the FDA approved it for as well.
And so what's your message to Donald Trump? Because we know that he has the power. He's had the power since the beginning of this crisis months ago to increase production of these respirators. We know that it was just revealed that the United States has been shipping these respirators across the world even after this crisis exploded. We know that Trump finally said he's taking action on Thursday, but he previously resisted, saying we're not like Venezuela. But in fact, Trump had been using this Defense Production Act when it suited him to build things like the wall with Mexico. He had used the same act, but he resisted to produce the N95 mask. So what is your message to Trump? And are you afraid this might be too late?
The nurses, are CNA, which is the California state affiliate of National Nurses United. The nurses are National Nurses United. And as nurses of National Nurses United, we are calling for Trump to invoke full authority under the DPA, under the Defense Production Act, not just the select few companies that can manufacture the PPEs and the ventilators, but for the full spectrum of companies to be made to be called on to produce these PPEs that are being reported as small and stockpile. This is what the reasoning is in all the hospitals. Oh, we don't have enough, so therefore you cannot have a mask. We're calling for him to invoke the full authority under the Defense Production Act. We are also recognizing that as nurses of CNA, we cannot do this alone. We cannot do it on our own. We need to have the full support of the communities throughout the nation to call upon Trump as well. We're directing people to go to protectnurses.org to sign the petition, because strength is in numbers, and really we're all in this together. We're going to get through COVID-19 together, and the only way to make something happen is to just all pull together, because we are not doing this just to protect ourselves. We're doing this to protect our patients, protect communities.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We know that this has all been a tremendous strain on this entire nation, but especially the healthcare workers like yourselves who are making enormous sacrifices. Thank you for your service.
Thank you all. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you helping us to get the word out.
Thank you for joining us at the Real News Network.
Thanks a lot for watching. Appreciate it. But do us one more solemn favor. Hit the subscribe button below. You know you want to. Stay up on the videos.